Good afternoon, scaredy cats. Hope you enjoy the video today and please like, comment, and subscribe. The Hollow Tree. A group of teenagers went hiking in the woods. There were of them altogether, 3 boys and 2 girls. They walked for miles and eventually they came to a clearing in the woods. There was a huge oak tree in the middle of the clearing and it was hollow. One of the boys looked into the hollow tree and saw something white at the bottom. He reached in and pulled it out. It was a note, and when he unfolded it he found, written in large red letters, the words, "3 of you will die." The teenagers laughed it off. They assumed someone had left it there to play a trick on them. It was getting late and the sun was going down, so they decided to set up camp in the clearing. They pitched their tents and built a fire to cook some food. That night, one of the boys stayed up to keep watch while the other 4 went to sleep. In the morning, when they woke up, they found that the fire had gone out and their friend was nowhere to be seen. They couldn't understand why he would wander off. Then, one of the girls noticed something high up in the branches of the hollow tree. There was a big leather bag and its handles were tangled in the branches. It was too high up for any of them to reach. On the second night, another boy stayed up to keep watch while the other 3 went to sleep. In the morning, the fire was out and the boy had disappeared. The other 3 began to get worried. On the third night, one of the girls stayed up to keep watch and the other 2 went to sleep. In the morning, the fire was out and the girl had disappeared. The 2 teenagers who were left were very scared. They stayed by the tent and wondered what they should do. After a while, a forest ranger came by and the teenagers called out to him. They explained that their friends had gone missing and told him about the bag that was hanging in the tree. The forest ranger grabbed his rifle, took aim at the bag and pulled the trigger. The bullet ripped through the handles and the bag fell to the ground. When they opened the bag, they were horrified by what they found. Inside were the severed heads of their missing friends. The Ace of Spades. 2 young girls, named Nicole and Tamara, were sitting in their backyard one evening. They were passing their time playing cards at the garden table. It was getting dark and the moon was visible in the night sky. There was a forest and a swamp behind their house and the wind was blowing softly through the trees. The girls were just about to start a new game when a tall man appeared from the darkness. The 2 girls had never seen the man before and, as he came shuffling through the long grass and approached them, they felt a little afraid. "I see you 2 are playing cards," he said. The girls nodded. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "I can teach you a new game." Tamara shook her head. Her mother had always warned her not to talk to strangers. Besides, the man looked very creepy. But the other girl said, "Okay, I suppose. It's kind of boring just playing with 2 people. Show us your new game." Tamara nudged her and whispered in her ear, "I don't want to play with him. Let's just go inside." "Come on," laughed Nicole. "Stop being such a baby. Stay here. Don't you want to learn a new card game?" Reluctantly, Tamara agreed to stay. The tall man picked up the deck of cards and began shuffling them. "I don't know if you will like this game," he said, grinning broadly, "but I know I will enjoy it immensely." He dealt the cards, 1 to each of the girls and 1 to himself. Tamara's card slid off the table and fell face up on the ground. It was the Ace of Spades. When Tamara bent down to pick it up, saw that the man wasn't wearing any shoes. His legs were long and hairy and his toenails were curled. A chill went down her spine. Holding the Ace of Spades in her hand, she began to feel very frightened. She began tugging at her friend's blouse and begged her to leave. Nicole refused and dismissed her with a wave of her hand. Tamara ran into the house and locked the door behind her. She scrambled up the stairs and into her bedroom. Grabbing her mobile phone, she called the police. When they arrived, a few minutes later, Tamara answered the front door and led them out to the backyard. When they got to the table, they found Nicole's dead body lying underneath it. The poor girl had been torn in half. The chair on which she had been sitting was covered in blood. A note had been placed on the table. It read, "You were saved from death by the Ace of Spades." The love test. Years ago, in Japan, there was a young girl who lived with her parents in a remote village. She was very attractive, with long black hair, pale white skin, and stunning oval eyes. Young Japanese men would come from miles around just to ask her out on a date. As word of her good looks spread around the area, more and more boys would turn up on her doorstep, professing their love for her and begging to be allowed to take her out for the evening. However, the problem was that none of the young men lasted more than one date with her. Before the night was over, they were always seen running away, screaming in terror. None of them would ever talk about what had happened, and all refused to meet her again. Before long, the young men stopped coming to visit, and her parents began to despair that their daughter would never find a husband. Rumors began to spread around the village. People said there must be something wrong with the beautiful girl. Some people wondered if she had a horrible personality. Others were of the opinion that she had some kind of hideous deformity that was driving away all of the boys. Her parents were mystified. They couldn't understand why so many young men were terrified by their daughter. She was always so sweet, gentle, happy, and even-tempered. She studied hard in the evenings and never complained when her mother asked her to do chores around the house. One day, as her father was out in the garden, mowing the lawn, a young man came walking up the garden path. "What do you want?" the old man asked. "I'd like to date your daughter," said the young man. The father was delighted. "Come right in," he said, and he happily introduced the young man to his beautiful daughter. The girl seemed very shy and never looked directly at the young man. She spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper, and whenever he spoke to her, she blushed bright red. Despite this, the young man seemed very taken by her beauty and asked her out on a date. She accepted and accompanied him to the door when he was leaving. "Not now," she whispered. "Come back at midnight and be careful not to knock too loud or you'll wake my parents up." The young man was surprised, but he came back that night and tapped softly on her bedroom window. Suddenly, the window opened and the girl climbed out. "Before I go out with you, you have to promise me something," she whispered. The young man nodded eagerly. "I want you to take a love test," she said. "If you really love me, you will pass the test. Promise me that if you fail the test, you will never tell another living soul about what went on tonight." The young man couldn't imagine what the beautiful young girl had in mind, but he agreed to remain silent. With his hand on his heart, he said, "I solemnly swear that I will never breathe a word of it to anyone." "Okay. Follow me," said the girl. "Where are we going?" the young man asked, but the girl didn't reply. It was a dark night and the moon was hidden behind a layer of clouds. In Japan, they say that it is on this type of night that ghosts wander the earth. The two young people could hear the ominous sound of dogs howling in the distance. They slipped quietly through the deserted village streets until they came to the woods. The girl hurried down a dark, overgrown path and the young man had to run to keep up with her. The path was bordered by enormous trees that loomed over them like huge monsters. Eventually, they reached an old cemetery. The moon emerged from behind the clouds, casting a pale light, and the young man could see old gravestones covered with moss and creeping vines. The girl's nightdress was billowing in the breeze. She was standing at the edge of a grave that looked quite fresh. As the young man watched, she picked up a rusty old spade and began to dig, flinging clumps of dirt everywhere. Then, she dropped to her knees and swept aside dirt with her hands until she uncovered a coffin. Imagine his surprise when she lifted the lid, opened the white shroud, and tore an arm off the corpse inside. Then she clamped it between her teeth and took a large bite. She chewed it loudly while staring at him. "This is the test of love," she hissed. "If you love me, you will do what I do. You will eat what I eat." With that, she ripped the other arm off the corpse and tossed it to the young man. He didn't hesitate for a moment. He picked up the arm and took a large bite. Now he was even more surprised. He never thought human flesh could be so delicious. Suddenly he realized that he wasn't eating a dead body at all. It was all just a prank. It was a candy corpse, made of sugar and rice flour. The beautiful girl burst out laughing. You know, of all the boys who came to take me on a date, you're the only one who didn't run away. I want to marry someone who is brave, and this proves you are the one. Now, I can fall in love with you. The young man didn't crack a smile. He just stood there in the darkness, by the edge of the grave, staring at her. His eyes were filled with rage and anger. Only candy, he growled. I thought you just liked me. With that, he grabbed the shovel and started to dig another grave. When he unearthed the coffin, he broke it open and began devouring the dead body inside. This time it was the girl who ran away screaming. The red curtains. In a small village in Russia, there lived a family of 3. There was a father, a mother, and a young daughter. The family were very poor and couldn't afford a nice place to live. They all lived and slept in the same small room. One day, the parents managed to save some money and decided to buy new curtains to brighten up the room. The mother sent her daughter to the store and told her to buy the cheapest curtains she could find. When the girl got to the store, she saw that they had all types of beautiful curtains. However, all of them were too expensive. The saleswoman told her that she had a special offer. 2 sets of cheap curtains for the price of 1. Red curtains and blue curtains. The young girl paid for the curtains and, as she was leaving, the saleswoman warned her that the red curtains should only be hung during the day and the blue curtains should only be hung at night. By the time the girl reached home, she had become confused and gave her mother the wrong instructions. During the day, the mother hung up the blue curtains and, when night fell, she hung up the red curtains. It was after midnight and the family were all lying in bed, fast asleep. Suddenly, a deep voice came from the red curtains. "Father, father, wake up," said the voice. The father woke up. "Father, father, get out of bed." The father got out of bed. "Father, father, get dressed." The father got dressed. "Father, father, come over to the window." The father went over to the window. "Father, father, stand on the chair." The father stood up on the chair and the red curtains strangled him. "Mother, mother, wake up," said the curtains. The mother woke up. "Mother, mother, get out of bed." The mother got out of bed. "Mother, mother, get dressed." The mother got dressed. "Mother, mother, come over to the window." The mother went over to the window. "Mother, mother, stand on the chair." The mother stood up on the chair and the red curtains strangled her. little girl, wake up," said the curtains. The little girl was always slow to do anything, so when she heard the voice, she just turned over in bed and fell asleep again. Little girl, get out of bed." The little girl woke up and rubbed her eyes. Little girl, get dressed." The little girl rolled out of bed and stood up. Little girl, come over to the window." The little girl struggled to put her clothes on. Little girl, stand on the chair." The little girl slowly walked over to the window. The red curtains reached out and strangled themselves. The girl was shocked and grabbed the phone to call the police. She told them she was all alone in the apartment and her parents had disappeared. When the police arrived, they pulled off the curtains and discovered a large hole in the wall. Cautiously peering inside, they saw 3 buckets. The first was full of human blood, the second was piled high with human skin, and in the third there was a pile of bones. On the floor beside the buckets lay the dead body of an old woman. She had choked herself to death.